What if the man you loved was feared by an entire city? What if you carried his child, while knowing his enemies wanted him dead? This isn't just a story. This was my life. The night I found out I was pregnant, and in love with a man the world called a monster. They called him a criminal. I called him home. But the deeper I fell, the more I realized that love with a mafia man comes at a cost. And I was about to pay mine in full. Met him on a cold Friday night. I was bartending part-time to support myself through college. I had dreams, simple ones. Stability. A family. Maybe one day my own cafe. He came in late, always dressed in black, never spoke much. But his eyes told a story that haunted me. At first, I didn't know who he was. To me, he was just the quiet man who tipped too generously and stared at the world like he'd lived 1,000 lifetimes. Then, the whispers began. That's Nico Romano, Don Vito's nephew. You know, those Romanos, the ones who run everything south of the river? Girl, don't even look at him too long unless you like trouble. But I was already in too deep. Our relationship started like any other. Flirty texts, late-night drives, stolen kisses in alleyways lit only by the buzz of broken street lamps. But unlike other relationships, ours came with shadows. By the 3rd month of dating, I noticed things. Strange men watching our apartment, phones that rang once and never again, bruises on his ribs he refused to explain. And yet, I stayed. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe he was different. That love was stronger than bloodlines and criminal empires. Until I saw his name on a police bulletin. Suspected in armed trafficking and racketeering. I confronted him that night, tears in my eyes, hands trembling. Tell me who you really are. He looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, I'm the man who would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. And in that moment, I didn't know if I should run or hold him tighter. But then, the pregnancy test turned positive. I stared at the double pink lines on that test for what felt like hours. Pregnant. My hands trembled. My stomach twisted with something that felt like both joy and dread. How do you tell a mafia man he's going to be a father? How do you bring a child into a world laced with blood, secrets, and unspoken codes? I waited 3 days before I told him. We sat at our usual spot, an old bench by the waterfront where the city lights flickered off the water. He always said it was the only place he could breathe. I held the test in my coat pocket, fingers curled around it like a lifeline. Nico, I whispered, I have something to tell you. He turned slowly, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Not suspicion, just concern. I'm pregnant. He didn't blink. He didn't move. For a moment, I thought maybe he hadn't heard me. Then he looked down and smiled. Not a soft, joyous smile. No, this was something else. Something like defiance. Like the world had dared him to be human. And he had chosen this child as his rebellion. Then we protect it. Whatever it takes. That's what he said. And just like that, my life was no longer mine. The weeks that followed were surreal. If you've ever found yourself caught between love and danger, between sacrifice and self-preservation, I want to hear your story in the comment section. He became obsessed with my safety. I wasn't allowed to walk alone. 2 men, Vinny and Luca, followed me everywhere, even into grocery stores. Nico moved me into a penthouse apartment with bulletproof windows and security cameras. To outsiders, I was a kept woman. But to Nico, I was his future. And yet, I wasn't blind. Late-night calls. Mysterious disappearances. Blood on his white button-downs that he never explained. One night, I woke to find him in the kitchen, sitting at the table, head in his hands. A gun was on the table next to a glass of whiskey. I touched his shoulder. Was it worth it? I asked softly. He didn't answer. Instead, he whispered, "They killed my cousin last night. Left him in a ditch as a warning. A warning for what? He looked up, eyes red. For loving you. That was the moment I realized. Loving me wasn't just risky. It was fatal. His enemies knew I was his weakness. And in the world Nico came from, a weakness wasn't tolerated. It was targeted. I started having nightmares. Seeing flashes of men with ski masks kicking down my door. Dreams of being pulled into vans. My unborn child screaming in the distance. The romance, the adrenaline, the passion, it all began to rot. Replaced by fear, dread, and guilt. Was I endangering my baby by staying? Or would I be betraying Nico by leaving? I thought about running. I had money saved from my old job. A friend upstate who owed me a favor. I could disappear. Start over. Keep the baby safe. But every time I looked at Nico, every time he kissed my belly and whispered, "You're going to be stronger than both of us combined," my resolve crumbled. Was I naive? Maybe. But in those moments, I wanted to believe that love could rewrite fate. That a man born into crime could be reborn through fatherhood. I wanted to believe he would leave that world. For me. For our child. But deep down, I knew better. The Mafia doesn't let you go. Not without blood. I began documenting everything. Just in case. Photos. Bank statements. Conversations I recorded on my phone when he wasn't looking. If something happened to me, I wanted the truth to be known. Some nights, I would just stare out the window of that high-rise apartment, watching the city below. What kind of mother am I becoming? Bringing a child into a world where bedtime stories are replaced with gunshots and paranoia? But Nico was trying. I saw it in the way he'd rub my feet for hours after his business meetings. In the way he skipped major sit-downs to come with me to doctor appointments. He told me once, "I've broken a lot of promises in my life, but I'll never break one to our child." And for a brief time, I let myself believe him. The night everything changed was a Tuesday. It always stuck with me, how something as ordinary as a Tuesday could hold the weight of the rest of my life. I was 7 months pregnant. We'd just come back from an ultrasound appointment where Nico swore the baby looked like him. He was laughing, lighter than I'd seen him in weeks. For a moment, we were normal. A couple planning a nursery, picking out names, talking about strollers and lullabies. But the illusion didn't last. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke to a strange buzzing sound. Not a phone. Not the building's intercom. It was coming from Nico's burner phone. The one he swore was just for emergencies. He wasn't in bed. I padded into the living room and saw him standing shirtless, his back to me, staring at the TV, off, nothing but a black screen reflecting our shadows. He was on the phone, whispering in Sicilian. His voice sharp, rushed, afraid. I stayed silent, half hidden behind the wall, listening. Then I heard it. They know about her. They know she's pregnant. My heart dropped. No, not yet. But they're watching. I need to end it. Tonight. My knees buckled. My hands flew to my belly instinctively. End it. End what? Me. The baby. Us. I backed away from the wall, heart pounding in my throat. I didn't know what to believe. Was I hearing right? Was Nico planning to leave us? Protect us? Or something darker? The next morning, he was different. Gentler. Sweeter. Almost. Final. He made breakfast. Sat with me longer than usual. Kissed my belly and whispered something in Italian I didn't understand. I wanted to confront him, but fear kept me silent. Until later that night, when we were watching TV and the building suddenly went dark. A power outage. Or so I thought. Then came the sound of metal scraping. Like someone trying to pry the door open. Nico jumped up instantly, grabbed his gun from the side table, and motioned for me to get into the back bedroom. I froze. Nico, what's happening? He turned to me, his eyes wild but focused. They found us. Go. Now. I stumbled into the bedroom, locking the door behind me. I grabbed my phone. No signal. The sound of a struggle exploded from the living room. Furniture smashing, glass shattering, men yelling. Then, 2 gunshots. Silence. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Every second dragged like a lifetime. Then the door opened. It was Nico, blood on his shoulder, but alive. He collapsed onto the bed, breathing hard. We need to leave. Now. We drove for hours, out of the city, through back roads and rain-soaked highways. He didn't speak, just drove. Eventually, we pulled into an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. He looked at me with hollow eyes. They won't stop. Not until I'm dead. And if they think you're a way to get to me. He didn't finish the sentence. I sat beside him on the cold, creaky floor of that cabin, and finally asked, "What did you mean last night, when you said you had to end it?" His silence was an answer. Eventually, he whispered, "I was going to send you away. Far. Somewhere safe. I'd rather die than see you or the baby hurt." And then, softly, "But now it's too late." That was the moment. The exact second I knew I had to choose. Stay with him, and risk raising a child in a world of violence, hiding, and fear. Or leave. Disappear before his enemies could find me. Before they could use our child as leverage. Before love cost us all our lives. I held his hand for the last time that night, and I made my decision. The decision to leave wasn't easy. In fact, it shattered something inside me I didn't know could be broken. The next morning, I packed what I could. A bag with clothes, my ID, a passport I kept hidden for emergencies, and a letter. A final letter I never intended to send. I left the cabin before Nico woke up. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anyone to turn to. All I had was a baby growing inside me, a broken heart, and a world full of dangerous promises I had to outrun. I couldn't risk returning to my old life. I couldn't stay in the city. The Mafia had eyes everywhere, and now that Nico had been exposed, we were exposed. In the months that followed, I moved from place to place, always looking over my shoulder. I changed my appearance, my name, and eventually my identity. I used every contact I had to disappear. I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. But there wasn't a day that went by when I didn't wonder, was I doing the right thing? Would he ever know his father? Would Nico ever find us? I didn't want to raise him in fear. I didn't want him to grow up in the shadows of a life that could have taken everything from us. And yet, I missed him. Nico. There were nights I would lie awake, tears running down my face, and wonder what he was doing. Was he safe? Was he alive? Months later, I heard rumors. Whispers of Nico being on the run. That he was trying to cut ties with the underworld. But in that world, once you're in, there's no real way out. It wasn't until one day, about a year after I'd left, that I received a letter from him. It was postmarked from a small town I'd never heard of, but I knew it was from him. His handwriting was unmistakable. "I know why you left. I understand. I would have done the same for you, for our child. But please know this, I never wanted to drag you into this life. I've done terrible things, but I will spend every day of my life making sure our son never knows this world. If you ever need me, you know where to find me." He never asked for anything. No promises. No demands. Just a message. I burned the letter, but I kept his words in my heart. The love I had for Nico never truly disappeared. It transformed into a quiet grief, a longing for something I couldn't have. I moved on. I raised my son. I found peace in the little things, teaching him how to walk, how to read, how to love without fear. But there was always that scar, that ache. The love I shared with a man who, for all his flaws and mistakes, was a part of me. And I think that's when I understood. Some loves are not meant to last forever, but they shape us. They teach us. They change us in ways we can't explain. What I learned is this: you can love someone fiercely, even when they live a life that's impossible to understand. You can fight for what's right, but sometimes the hardest fight is walking away. I don't know where Nico is now. Maybe he's still fighting. Or maybe, in some quiet corner of the world, he's trying to build something new, just like I did. But the truth is, we can't outrun our past forever. All we can do is try to make the future better. For the ones we love. What would you have done in my shoes? Could you have walked away from someone you loved, even if it meant risking everything? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more personal stories that dive into the complexities of love, life, and the choices that shape us. If you're interested in more stories like this, be sure to check out my other videos where I explore the dark twists and emotional roller coasters that life throws at us. I promise you, the journey never ends. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe and take care of yourself, because the only person who can truly protect you is you.